Hey there, and thanks for tuning in to Coffee with Klingman, where I talk with some of the most interesting people I know over a damn good cup of joe. Today in the cafe, I have seven-figure entrepreneur Jeremiah Klingman talking about the laptop lifestyle and the true lifestyle of an e-commerce entrepreneur. Jeremiah.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. Hey. Yeah.
Thank
cheers.
You. Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers. That was a really weak cheers, man.
It's not a real mug. It's a prop. That was a fake.
It's a fake mug. Fake yeah. 100% fake sip.
I did that many times with the last podcast.
That's hilarious.
Because I ran out of water.
Yeah, exactly.
I kept drinking.
Would you like, we're gonna make it look like it's good. That's funny. So welcome to the podcast. Thank you. I would say thank you for coming out here, but thank you for letting me come here and do this podcast.
Pleasure to be in your basement.
Yeah, exactly. So tell me about some of your failures and when it comes to how you've built your e-commerce life.
Okay, into it.
Yeah, just dive right in.
Failures, okay. Specific types, like monetary failures, just like projects that didn't work out, or
either or.
Like
what are some of the ones?
Days?
The early days. What are some of the ones
Early
that
days.
stuck out in the beginning, like in your first steps?
Okay. So in the very first early days, that would have been like retail arbitrage. Technically, overall, my retail arbitrage days were a failure, but really, I just pivoted to something else. I don't necessarily view it as that.
How so?
So at the time, we were buying and selling, like retail arbitrage, for those who don't know, buying and selling things from liquidation sales, closeout sales, regular sales, Martins, triple markdowns.
Gotta
just
love
buying
that.
And selling online, essentially. But you're buying from retail stores at whatever, deal, and then you're selling them online. So me and Johnny, we did that. We were partners at that time. Kind of. Actually, we weren't actually partners for a year or two after that.
That's funny.
But we did that for a little while, just buying and selling random stuff. It worked out. The margins were okay, but we didn't like that there was no consistency. It would be like some days we would make $1,000, and then some weeks would go by and you're like, I barely made anything. So there was no consistency. We were shipping everything ourselves. At the time, in our minds, we didn't think it was scalable. We were like, okay, the only way to scale this with the little margins that we had, okay margins anyways, depending the products, we would have had to build out a whole logistics team. So we didn't realize that we could have used Amazon FBA to scale completely. We didn't start using Amazon FBA until we were midway through the private labeling game.
Damn. Okay.
So we didn't realize that there was other opportunities to help us. So we were like, oh, okay, this isn't going to work out. So we pivoted to something else. So that technically in our mind at the time, which I feel like that's most failures, just because you didn't end up being quote unquote successful with that project, obviously someone could have done it, right? And looking back, I see people now crushing it with retail arbitrage, making 6-7 figures, and they have all the systems and processes worked out. There's lots of softwares that were available then, some are, some weren't, that you can use now to scale those businesses. But at the time, we didn't know. Some of them didn't exist, and we didn't know of a lot of them at the time.
Gotcha.
So we pivoted to private labeling at the time.
Interesting. Okay, so what are some other some specifics?
Let's see. In the retail arbitrage days, well, kind of. It was a hybrid between retail arbitrage and private labeling. The goddamn frozen blankets.
I remember this.
So we were starting to move outside of retail arbitrage because we didn't want to spend so much of our own time buying and shipping ourselves. So we were like, how could we do this? So we found a blend of drop shipping. So we started buying things from China instead of buying things at retail stores and selling them online. So we'd buy, there was speakers, there was shower speakers that we had. I would buy 300 at a time from China for probably between $3 and $5 a unit kind of thing, and then sell them online. I would usually hijack people's listings and stuff. I hate those people now.
That's funny.
But
that's funny.
So then,
start somewhere.
Yeah. So we started that way. That was our intro to quote unquote drop shipping, even though it wasn't really drop shipping, but it was our intro to buying stuff from China. Eventually, I started buying these blankets it was a duvet cover set. Okay. So like a cover that you put over a comforter. Mm-hmm. It's called a duvet.
Interesting.
I know. I had no idea. Yeah, exactly.
Literally never heard of this.
But this was when Frozen just came out. So Frozen was breaking box office records. We knew it was this massive trend. Anything to do with Frozen was selling out the wazoo.
Yeah.
So we were buying toys. We were buying cell phone cases, selling them all, and we realized that, okay, this is super popular, super trendy. We need to like find some higher margin products, and we can't wait for China to ship these all to us and for us to ship them. Yeah. So these Frozen blankets, these duvet covers, they were like $250 was like the retail price you could sell them for, anyways, which is nuts.
That's insane.
Literally anything from like $170 to like almost $300. That was like the depending like queen or king or twin kind of thing.
That is insane.
And surprisingly, people would buy the kings, like a king size, and it's a Frozen blanket. So I was like, what kid has a king size bed
and is willing to spend $200?
Literally, yeah. I assume it was the parents, but like,
still.
Crazy. So eventually, we did that for a little while, and we made a lot of money doing it. I mean, it was our first intro to like scaling a business. So we realized after selling some of those, we sold like, I don't know, it was like 20 grand worth in a week or two. And we were like, this is crazy. I don't even know what I just did.
Yeah.
So we and immediately after that, this is where the failure comes in. We got a cease and desist letter from Disney. We technically kind of, I don't even want to say we knew because I'm being recorded, but we had documentation from the sellers, from the manufacturers in China saying that we're authorized distributors of the Disney brand name kind of thing. We had an inkling that this is probably fake documentation, but we had it. So we were like, all right. So when we got the cease and desist letter from Disney, we sent them that, and they were like, I don't know what this is. This is not from us. You are not able to sell this. So we got our account suspended. So then that was like the first big pitfall from us, like slowly building up retail arbitrage, making a little bit of money. Then we started getting stuff from China, then drop shipping from China, and then we found these blankets, and then we were like, okay, we're making a lot of money now, trying to figure out exactly what we were even doing. And then we get suspended. So then we had to really reverse engineer pretty much everything we did. Yeah. So something we didn't realize at the time that we did right was we put it under our own brand name. So it wasn't under the Disney brand name. It was under our original brand name, which was Core-Tech at the time. Core-Tech. Old brand name that I used to have, which was just like something I had, didn't really know what to do with it, and I was just selling random stuff under that name. Yeah. So it was like Core-Tech blankets by Disney, or Disney blankets by Core-Tech kind of thing. And it was really useful at the time anyways, because not many people were doing private labels. This was in like the 2013 maybe. So there was a decent amount of private labels actually, but it was still in the very early days. So the fact that we had our own listing for these, we weren't competing on another listing with everyone else, undercutting us. So we were able to rank pretty quickly, and after getting a few reviews, it was pretty easy selling. Okay. So then after we realized that I'm like, okay, this is what we needed to do. This is what we need to do, or this is what we did, and this is what we need to do. So we kind of reverse engineered it after that. I mean, there was a lot of figuring out how to get an account back. That was a big one. Yeah. Amazon suspension from day one. That's like a lot of people come to me and they're like, oh, they're all terrified about Amazon suspension, and it's like. That was hurdle number one for us, and you have to be able to get over those hurdles.
So this kind of ties into a quote that I know you and Trevor had come up with. I want to say Travis. You and Travis. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Travis. It's funny. I was calling him Trevor for like weeks up until last night when we had the interview, and I heard you call him Travis. And I'm like, I've been having it wrong this whole time.
That's so funny.
Sorry, Travis. So when you and Travis came up with this quote, that really defined like the beginning of entrepreneurship and what is entrepreneurship
for us, anyways.
Yeah, for you guys and your journey and what that looked like. Can you? Yeah, I think you have it on your phone. Can you grab that?
Absolutely, I can.
Because I'm pretty sure that ties in to what we're saying here.
Yep. I might even just be able to remember it.
That'd be sick.
So the quote was, which me and Travis came up with this. Mostly Travis. I added to it a little bit. This was like a few years ago. We were talking and came up with this. because me and Travis both had, for those listening, a very similar story in the sense that we started our entrepreneurship journey like doing like retail arbitrage, and like then it was like buying and selling and buying stuff from China and doing drop shipping and stuff like that.
And if you want to hear the full story from Travis, you can listen to the previous podcast that'll be released before this one, which right before here we had Travis on. It was incredible.
Great
So
podcast.
much fun.
It was awesome. The quote was, entrepreneurs don't start out being able to scale brands. They start with the guts to walk into a store and start scanning UPCs. And then the addition to that was added like a year later was, you can't scale to 7 figures before scaling to 6, and before that 5. Start small, celebrate small wins.
I mean, those two things actually that you just pointed out at the end, I feel like are so crucial to people who are just beginning. It's start small and celebrate small wins. Those two things. The idea that you can't just just dive in and be like, okay, here is, let's scale this to 7 figures right here, right now. It's like, no, you have to learn the process. And there's actually a brand, I'm not going to name the name, you know who this is, but there's this brand that I do some work with, and they kind of dove in and were able to scale it immediately up to this like 6-7 figure business, but because they didn't go through the process of learning what it took to get there and then what it took to maintain it. Now that competition's gotten crazy, it's really difficult for them to stay afloat.
And that's becoming more and more common nowadays, especially in the private label game, because there was a kind of a defining moment maybe 2.5 years ago, which was, I mean, anyone who was in the space and like surrounded in that community saw this coming, because it was very talked about. It was like people were talking about it for years before it happened. There was a mass consolidation of these larger brands coming in on Amazon and swooping up the private label game. And it made it so the quote-unquote private label game was very hard to do. It was just way too much saturation, way too much competition. You really needed to add more value, have define your products better, define your brand better. You couldn't just throw something up and start making money like we did with the frozen blankets. It was, those days were over, and you had to be a little bit more strategic. And for the people who like us, who got lucky from the start essentially, but then figured it out along the way, are able to kind of last longer and further the brand. But the people who had the same kind of luck, that level 10 luck like we talked about with Travis, but left it at that, got very complacent, left it at that, and never reverse engineered the process after that, are now being thrown by the wayside.
Do you think leading, because I know this is something you've talked about before, is about leading with value, and do you think that has played a lot into why you're able to maintain and why you're able to grow multiple different businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. There was absolutely a kind of a large attributing factor to scaling these brands past the private label game, because once it got so saturated and you couldn't just take a quote unquote generic product from China and sell it with your brand name attached to it, you had to really start building out, what is the brand, what customer are you serving, what problem are you solving, is that problem big enough like for this niche? You had to really essentially lead with value is what we're calling it now. You'd lead with value.
Interesting. Okay.
In really everything we do, whether it's our verbiage for the listings, and in our marketing, in the brand, the products themselves, instead of overselling and under-delivering, which was kind of like the private labeling 101, honestly.
Basic how you start,
which worked well for a while, which was great. But then at the same time, it quickly led into the reverse of that, leading with value and underselling and over-delivering, or even overselling but still over-delivering. You really have to back it up, because eventually, especially if you want longevity, in my mind, longevity is the only real success in this game. So if you have a product that's successful, if it's successful for a product or brand or business, whatever it is, successful for 6 months, a year, 2 years, that's great. But it's not going to pay your bills for the next 10 years. You know what I mean? Unless you're trying to scale it and sell it, which is one strategy, which is not a bad strategy. But
I mean, that's one thing you've done.
Literally, yes, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But if you're really trying to have true longevity in the business, you really need to have quality services or products, whatever it is, like lead with value.
So for someone, I think this would be really interesting. I wasn't intending to go here, but I think I'm going to go with it. For someone who has like quote unquote made it, who has like experienced a lot of monetary and financial success, which is something a lot of people are striving after and a lot of people are working towards. And you've done it in a way that a lot of people are now seeing as an incredible opportunity, being using e-commerce. So for someone who has achieved that success, who has achieved that monetary success, how would you say that has impacted your definition of success? Like, was it different when you first started to where it is now?
Yes,
How so?
absolutely.
Okay.
So, for example, I remember a specific time when I was at a restaurant in Freeport in Maine with Johnny, and we were literally at the urinal, and me and Johnny have talked about this. It's a really funny story that we both remembered. We were at the urinal, and this is before we started Tribe Fitness, but I think it was Run Tech at the time before we changed the name.
Yeah.
So we were thinking of the possibilities, and we were like, this could be $1 million company. And we were so stoked on like that this could be successful. We could be successful.
Yeah.
And we could make money doing this kind of thing. And so that was kind of like our goal, was to make more money doing it. And then eventually we realized that like once we hit that $1 million mark and we were selling, you had sold or was worth $1 million kind of thing, nothing changed. We didn't even celebrate it. It wasn't even on our plate that of something it wasn't on our radar of something we even wanted. We were still striving for the next thing. So that helped us scale past that, but it also taught us that the monetary goal meant nothing. It really it didn't change anything. So then after that, we kind of redefined our version of success to being whatever you want it to be. So like now it's kind of a joke we have when people say like, oh, I've made it or I'm successful. We're like, okay, so like, what does that mean? You know, like, are you happy? Yeah. That's number one. And most time it's no.
Most of the times it's no.
It's kind of funny.
Interesting. Yeah, because you kind of built this business up and like this makes you happy. Like it's funny. I don't know if I've ever told you this to your face. I've definitely told this to tons of people behind your back. It's you have always been involved in like selling, and you've always been really crafty, really creative, a hacker, as Travis was talking about last night. You've always been that. And so I've always known you were either going to be like multi-millionaire, crazy, financially successful, or end up in jail. Because you were really good at
That's what everyone told me my whole life.
Those things. Okay.
You're either going to be a lawyer, successful, millionaire, or in jail.
Yeah, one of the two, because you were such a great hack.
I've definitely walked the line.
Yeah, that's fair. And so seeing that kind of definition of success change has been interesting. But I know you started this, and this has always been like a passion for you. So you are able to find happiness in this. So what would you say to someone who sees this and sees the monetary value and wants to dive in, but it doesn't. But
doesn't enjoy the process, the business side. No, that's a really good point. Literally the only way we've been able to really do any of this is because we enjoy doing it. So there's been times like the current brand I'm a part of, Rome. There's been years of struggle. There's been multiple times we've gone from a multi-million-dollar business to square one. And we've had to pick up the pieces and figure out what to do after that. And I enjoy the process. I enjoy the process even more as a startup. So like those times where it's like we're back at square one, I don't necessarily, knock on wood, but like I don't necessarily enjoy that. But at the same time, it gets me excited. So I really enjoy scaling businesses from square one, from the start. Going from 1 million to 5 million is not really as exciting to me.
Interesting.
Going from 100,000 to 1 million is much more exciting to me.
That's where you get stoked.
That's where I get really stoked.
Interesting.
So the process is more, I guess I enjoy the learning side of it. So like whether it's learning algorithms, looking for patterns, looking for like what the psychological triggers are behind getting someone to buy a specific niche of products, like whatever that is, figuring that out. Yeah. And then scaling from there and seeing that XYZ of what I learned implemented, then made more money is very rewarding. Regardless of the actual money, whether it's scaling from taking a product from 5 sales a day to 50 sales a day, or 50 sales a day to 500 sales a day. It's the same process, and it gets me excited in the same way.
Got you.
the monetary side of it is more of a byproduct of it. Like you've heard people say, like don't chase money kind of thing, like chase value or chase excellence or something. The money will follow. The money will follow kind of thing. I mean, that's kind of kitschy and like gimmicky, but at the same time, it's honestly kind of true. If you lead with value and if you lead with trying to, if you enjoy the journey and enjoy the process, you can go a lot further.
Yeah. And you're willing to put in that extra work.
You're willing to put in that extra work. And then the money will follow if you are good at it anyways.
It's kind of that idea that's fair. It's kind of that idea that like if you want to be successful, you just pick something and do it for 10 years.
Yeah.
And like success will inevitably follow, because if you continue to iterate and continue to get better and continue to strive to change and to improve over 10 years time, there will be like hundreds of thousands of people who would have tried it, went for a year, dropped off, tried it, went for like a month, were like, this isn't great. But if you stick with it, then success and that monetary value will follow. And in order to stick with it, you have to absolutely love it. Same idea?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's largely why I've left certain businesses and businesses that were making money and I just wasn't passionate about. It wasn't exciting to me anymore. So I consolidated, I left, I sold, whatever it is.
Yeah.
The monetary value there, especially, I mean, I'm in a weird situation just because I can afford to leave those businesses.
Yeah.
If I couldn't, it would be a different situation. But if you can afford not to, I would always go towards something that you're more passionate about, because it'll be a lot easier to move forward in that business or
Makes
project.
sense. And so this hasn't always been an easy start from you. In the sense a lot of people think that, this person has done these businesses. Like you grew up, you literally built this business. When did you start Tribe? Like that's the first one that became really successful. And then
Tribe was our first quote unquote real business.
Yeah.
In the sense of we scaled past like 100,000 or a few 100,000 in revenue up into we sold when we hit like 5 million in revenue ish. That was the first real business anyways. I mean, businesses before that were the foundation of why Tribe was even successful.
Yeah.
But they weren't at scale by any means.
Yeah. And so how old were you when you started like Tribe?
Tribe, we started in early 2014.
2014.
So
okay.
What would that be?
About 5 years ago.
Like 5 years ago. So I was like, what, like 17?
17. Okay.
17.
Yeah. So, and that's funny. A lot of people hear this story and they're like, oh yeah, I know he started off and he was young and that's great and all. But I have, a common one would be like, I have ADD. I can't get this focus. I can't zero in on the time and the energy that it takes to do this. So I know you have a story behind that. So what's some of the...
Yeah. So when I mean, as you know, obviously being my brother, when I was...
Came in with some background information here, leading a question.
When I was like 8 years old-ish, I had like a neurological issue caused by a random infection. It was an infection in my tooth that I got from
freaking dentist.
Long story.
Yeah,
a dentist caused it, but then he also saved my life. So like, fuck him, but like, thank you. So is this weird balance, but essentially, bottom line, I got a bunch of weird neurological disorders because of an infection. And which caused like level 10 ADD, ADHD. Well, ADD and ADHD I probably had before, but it amplified it. And OCD to the max. And this was all like clinically diagnosed. Like I went to a bunch of therapists and psychologists and did a bunch of weird tests. And they were like, yeah, you have like a bunch of interesting things, including Tourette's along with it.
Yeah.
Eventually, by the time I was 13, I had a blood transfusion that fixed the infection. So my body was able to fight it so it didn't get worse. So it helped me cope with a lot of the illnesses like OCD and ADD and ADHD. But at the same time, I still had to like figure out how to deal with those on the day-to-day basis. I had no idea. I didn't even really realize how serious those were at the time. I didn't realize how to cope with them.
I think it wasn't really something that people talked about.
It wasn't something that people talked about. I mean, I literally had to go to like a specialist, like so many specialists in like Boston and Vermont just to be able to get it diagnosed. And now like I went to my doctors recently here in Colorado, and I told them that I had when I was younger, I had PANDAS, which was a pediatric autoimmune disorder associated with strep, and it caused all these different neurological issues. And they were like, oh, yep, no, that's interesting. Yeah, heard all about that. And I was like, you know about this? Literally, like my whole life, nobody's known anything about this. Yeah. It was just like a random doctor.
That's hilarious.
So it was really interesting. But bottom line, I had to like figure out how to cope with these. And one of the things that definitely helped me a lot was becoming an artist and drawing, which was really, I never realized it at the time, but starting out, like I got into like drawing cartoons, and they were like quick sketches, like as quick as I could, as much focus as I could put into one like piece of art.
Yeah. It's like I got a stick figure, mostly.
Literally. And then I would start drawing. I mean, eventually I got to the point where I was drawing more like portraits and like landscapes and stuff like that.
Freaking great drawings.
But I mean, I thought they were pretty good, and I definitely improved quite a bit. But at the same time, it would take me years, literally years to finish. The last drawing I actually finished, it took me 7 years to finish. Damn. And it was really rewarding to see that amount. Even if the focus wasn't all in one effort, it wasn't me sitting down for 30 hours in finishing one piece of art. It was me sitting down for 20 minutes at a time over the course of a few years, over the course of like times 10 drawings at a time, we'll say, which made me really kind of more subconsciously realize that if I focused on a singular goal and just put a little bit of effort into it, but kept moving forward and kept moving forward, I would eventually see success in that, and it would be a large reward at the end. Kind of like the idea of conscientiousness, of like delayed gratification. And it's something our grandfather always told me was successful people make decisions and stick to them. So I kind of took that as, and I've always remembered that, it was just something he always said, I kind of took that as, even if you make a decision and stick to it, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the only thing in your life you're doing. But if you're always making efforts towards that thing, like you will progress in that thing. And if there's one thing I know now, it's that if you make effort and progress and focus on singular tasks, you will improve. And eventually you will, it's like the one thing, like the book, The One Thing. If you take that one domino and then you hit that one domino to the next domino and to the next, you will improve, and you'll get better and be successful at whatever that is.
Interesting. Okay. That's pretty sweet. Now this is something that's been interesting, and I wanted to ask you this for a while, just because I've, like, as your bro, I've always wondered how this has changed. So when it comes to how people treat you, one, for your age, because you're now, I have to do the math here, 5 years after 17, so you're like what, 23? Okay, cool. So you're 23 now.
So I guess it'd be 6 years now, I guess.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm 23 now.
All right, cool. So you're 23 and financially very successful. How has this changed? Like how people treat you? First I want to talk about because of your age. So a financially successful 23-year-old. How do people treat you?
When we first started making a lot of money, I was very secretive about it. I didn't tell anyone. Nobody knew.
I had no idea. I found out
by the time
years later.
There was one defining moment when I kind of came out of the closet, per se, in that sense, which was Easter of, I don't know what year it was. It was early days, so it was probably 2015, maybe 2016, maybe. And we made like 70 grand that month. I think this was 2015. This must have been like 2015. And on Easter, someone asked me about it, and this is in front of the entire family. And I was like, in my head, I was like, okay, what do I lie about it? Like, I'm not going to lie about it. But I definitely don't necessarily want everyone to know exactly what's going on in my financial life. So then the cat was out of the bag, and I just told everyone. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, okay, interesting.
I mean, I straight up remember you bumming rides off of me when I go in town. I had no idea. You kept it very secret, and that was. I don't blame you. I don't blame you at all.
I didn't want people to assume that I was making that money, because I wasn't. I saw it as a different entity. I saw the business as a different entity, and the business was making that money.
Yeah.
It was always me and Johnny's joke that we were the richest poor guys around because we weren't paying ourselves. So we'd pay ourselves like 20 grand, and then the business would need like 15 grand, and we'd be like, all right, take that money we just wired and like wire it right back, and we like lost $50 instead of paying ourselves.
Yeah.
So we weren't actually like making money per se, which that also changed my perception of what is success, what is like, what is being wealthy and stuff like that. When it all started to change was probably a few years later when I did start taking home a lot more money, and those obvious trappings of wealth. I don't know, like I would buy a new car and stuff like that. And for my age, it wasn't really, it's not that people would like treat you differently. People would just assume things. Okay. They would assume things differently. So like, let's say I don't even know. It wasn't a big deal actually. It wasn't like the kind of thing where it was like everyone treated me differently kind of thing. But it was subtle things like you go out to eat and like you get an extra appetizer and people are like, oh right, I forgot this guy over here. And you're like, okay, yeah, all right, I don't know what to say to that. But
nothing
like,
really.
It was nothing really, but it did always make me feel kind of uncomfortable. Or people would assume like you're going to pay for them. Or like you go on like a trip and like people would assume you pay for them, or you go on like or even like in the church even, because I was going to the vineyard at the time. People would reach out for money all the time. Like people even today, I call them IG grubbers is what I call them. Literally, that's my category for them. People will literally reach out to me and be like, can I have $5,000? Yeah. And I'll be like, no. Yeah. Why would, what?
Yeah. It's like you're not just going to give someone $5,000.
It's ridiculous. No.
Yeah.
But you can always kind of see just, people don't necessarily treat you differently, but you can see their perception of you change. And it's really hard to I guess conceptualize. I don't really think about it very often. But the interesting thing is the people I've found that are the exact opposite, that are completely open and have no stereotyping of what you do and, oh, that makes sense because you're wealthy, like in weird little stereotypes that are not necessarily hurtful, but like maybe make you uncomfortable kind of thing, and it's just kind of odd. Are the wealthy. So like those people, like other entrepreneurs who are successful, always have, it's the exact opposite, and I'm always treated like just a normal person,
like a normal
like
human,
a totally
dude.
normal person. Yeah, which is really cool. I'm trying to think of another scenario.
No, well, you mentioned something. So you said you have a category, these IG grabbers.
IG grubbers.
Grubbers.
That's just
grubbers. That's hilarious. So why? And this actually ties into something that that you had mentioned a little earlier. You said if someone's going to reach out for like $5,000, it's like you're not just going to give someone $5,000. You're not just going to give them money. Now, you also mentioned earlier that like you'd pay yourself $20,000, and then business needs $15,000, so you just pay it back. And like the business is making like lots of money, but you're not taking a lot. And I think there's this disconnect in a lot of people's minds that if this business is making $100,000, then you must be pocketing $100,000.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, that's exactly where the disconnect is. Yeah.
So what does that look like for you guys? Like when you were in Tribe, you didn't actually start pocketing decent money until you guys were like probably 7 figures.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's exactly right. We definitely didn't start necessarily paying ourselves anything above a few $1,000s here and there until we were able to pay ourselves tens of thousands of dollars. So that was one thing that not necessarily always the best idea, because I do think it's important to get paid for like your worth and get paid for what you're doing. But I guess it depends the business. So for example, with Tribe Fitness, we were very lean. It was 2 people and some customer service reps and some independent contractors kind of thing. It was not a large company. So we could easily, and we were both okay with it because it was just us. So we were like, let's just not pay ourselves until we can actually pay ourselves a large amount. So we just didn't pay ourselves. And then we'd be like, all right, here's 50 grand finally after years of work kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then those large dividends came more often before we sold anyways.
There's
But now with our businesses now, like with Rome, we're on payroll, and we were only ever on payroll in Tribe Fitness for literally, it was like 10% of what we could have paid ourselves, because that was what was required by the government. And that was it. It was just for tax reasons. Now we took everything through dividends.
Interesting. And so there's this idea when a lot of people are trying to like save money, it's that you don't buy something unless you can afford to get like 10 of them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so if you're trying to save money like that, that's a great little trick. I've used that a few times. And
it's a good way to get you to not buy something.
Exactly. And I have that problem. Such a compulsive buyer. So like I forget about it. I'm like, I can't afford 10 of them. I'm not going to buy it right now. And so it seems to be kind of like the reverse of that. Like how you did it. You didn't pay yourself anything until you could pay yourself 10 times what you could pay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily because we wanted the large paycheck. It was because the business was siphoning so much cash. And we knew there was a large opportunity there. And we could continue to double up, like gambling almost, and just, and just keep growing the business and shoveling money into the business to grow it, and we would have a much larger paycheck down the road. That was not my idea. So when we originally started the business, all I wanted was $2,000 a month. This is what I wanted. I remember telling Johnny that, and he was like, dude, you're fucking crazy. Like, there's a huge amount of opportunity here. I was like, $2,000 a month, I'll be comfortable. That'll be good. And he was like, no, that's not happening. He's like, I'm not paying you $2,000 a month. We're not doing that.
That's hysterical.
So we decided to, and I did agree at the time. It wasn't like a fight or anything, but we decided to delay that until, and we still paid ourselves like to be able to live. We paid ourselves however much we needed to live, which was very little at the time. And then put everything back into the business, growing new products, failing them 100,000 times on new products, trying to figure out what stuck and what didn't, and trying to reverse engineer the process to make it lightning strike again, essentially.
Interesting. So you've had a bunch of different businesses. You had Tribe, you've done Rome. I just know those two off the top of my head, but I know you've done a bunch of others.
I did consulting with a few other brands, probably 3 or 4 other brands. None of them took off more than a few $100,000 a year, which to some people listening, they'll be like, that sounds amazing, but that's not profit.
Exactly. That's the difference.
So like there might have been a few $100,000 in revenue, but it cost me more in taxes than I was ever paid, kind of thing. So it's not, it wasn't ever like a big success story in that side. The interesting thing was a lot of them had to do with just the amount of passion and effort and time that was put in from all the different partners. So like, for example, I'm not that passionate about consulting. Like if someone comes to me and is like, hey, I want to start this business, a lot of people look to me and say like, I have this idea.
Look at you with those puppy eyes.
Yeah, and they're like, I have this idea. You've done this before, and here you take it and run with it, kind of thing. But that doesn't really, it's a two-way street, and I can consult, but I can't run someone else's business entirely. I just don't want to do that. And I already have an X amount of energy. I only have so much energy I can output. So, and if other people are already working full time or are already doing other things, or maybe they're just not passionate about it, there's so many other things at play. Nothing really ever took off in that side.
So what about partnerships? What has that looked like for you? Like, what are some of the pitfalls and some of the pros and the pitfalls that you've experienced?
Partnerships. It's partnerships are essentially a marriage. It's quite literally like you're marrying that person. You're fiscally responsible for them. They're fiscally responsible for you. Like you have now tied the responsibility together to each other. And if one person doesn't put in the amount of work, they're still getting paid for it. Legally anyways. So a lot of times. So like we have a thing now that like with Rome, that we have a saying, I think I talked about it last night with Travis, wages are for work and dividends are for owners. So the amount of work you put in, and this is just where, because so many partnerships go wrong where people say like, this guy's doing this amount of work, this guy's doing this amount of work, they're both getting paid, and then they get upset, and then there's like this conflict. But in my mind, when you start the business, there's no guarantee that it's ever going to take off. There's no guarantee that you're ever going to make a penny. You're probably going to lose money most likely. So we say, once you are making money and you can afford to start paying each other, don't just pay each other dividends regardless of however much each other's working. Pay each other wages. Once that wage gets capped at a certain point where it's like any more would be excess. So let's say it's like you need 40 grand a year to live, pay yourself 40 grand a year to live. The second you can start paying each other more than that, so like you're making more than 80 grand in profit if it's two people, then start taking dividends. And those dividends would be, equally split up between the people, but the wages themselves are for work. So like however much work that person's putting in, we used to do a calculation every year, and we haven't done it in a little while just because we were a little more relaxed about it, but we would record our hours of how much we're working for like a few weeks and then extrapolate that out over the year, assuming it's going to be an average, and then put yourself on payroll for that amount. And if you're technically working only a few hours a week and you only need 20 grand a year because of that's how much you're working, like that's how much you're going to be paid, and the rest is going to come from dividends. But if you're working a lot more than that, you'll be paid a lot more than that. That's kind of a way we've negated a lot of conflict in working. So how many hours someone's putting in and how much work they're putting in.
It sounds like there could be. There's a lot of potential for a lot of conflict in such situations.
Definitely,
like that.
There's always potential for a lot of conflict, especially because in my mind, the only way to get it done, to like push the business forward, is to just get it done, and whatever it needs to be. Like if you're an owner and you have responsibility to move the needle and drive the business forward, regardless of if it's your responsibility to get it done, if it's supposed to be them, if it's supposed to be her, if it's supposed to be him, you know what I mean? To just get it done. So that often happens, even if it's not your responsibility, and that can often cause conflict, and it has in the past.
A lot of conflict.
So like, I won't go into like specifics, but like there'll be times where like, okay, it's this person's job to do X, Y, Z. And I know you've experienced this in like businesses you've consulted for, that like maybe it's this person's job to do like inventory management, but you know that you're about to run out of stock. So you're just like, all right, I'm doing it. And you just get it done, and you write the manufacturer, you place an order kind of thing, and you figure out the projections and you do it regardless of if it's your job or not. If it's supposed to be them and if they're getting paid for it, but you just did it, like, fuck it. You just need to get it done. The business needs it. You're an owner. You have to get it done, kind of thing.
That's really interesting, because in the East, there's, this is going to totally derail where we're headed with that. But in the East, I remember when I was taking my Eastern philosophy classes, there was this idea that blew my mind. And I want to say this had to be 2012. So like 7 years ago, a long time ago. That actually blew my mind. And it was this concept that if something needs to get done, do it. That's simple. So it's this idea. Yeah, exactly. And it's such a simple thing. It's like, you know what? Doesn't matter who's watching. Doesn't matter if it's going to be embarrassing and people are going to look at you and be like, what the hell are you doing? Doesn't matter if you're going to get paid for it or not. Doesn't matter any other circumstance. If it needs to get done, do it. It's that simple.
And I feel like that's often causes conflict, especially in today's society where entrepreneurship is the flashy, shiny thing, and it's like the most popular thing to be like a Wantrepreneur. You know what I mean? Especially with like people like Gary Vee. Bless his soul, love Gary Vee to death. But like he's popularizing entrepreneurship I'm glad he's doing it, but at the same time there's a downside to that. It's becoming a trend. So people will want to have the laptop lifestyle, and they want to just work on stuff. Especially, I mean, if you go to co-working spaces, like we have an office at a co-working space, lots and lots of people there. Well, not so much anymore, just because this specific co-working space we work at is like a little more corporate now. But at most co-working spaces we've ever worked at, most of the people there have not made a single dollar, and they're just trying to further an idea that they might want to do in the future, and maybe they're just researching, just trying to like get out of the house or something. A lot of people are not necessarily pursuing entrepreneurship. They're just pursuing the idea of entrepreneurship, and they just want to they want to live that lifestyle, but they don't necessarily want to put in the work to do it.
Yeah.
Like maybe they want to have they want to have the role of CMO, but they don't want to take the crap that might come with it. You know what I mean? And there's a point where eventually you might get to that point where you can say, all right, now I can afford to hire out and delegate these tasks that I don't want to do anymore. But up until that point, if you can't afford to do it, and if it's not the right point to do that, you just have to get it done. Like literally even up until this year, I was still doing customer service to some extent. Like our customer service reps were reaching out to me and Justin, saying, you know, there's a problem with this and that and this and that. And they shouldn't have been reaching out to me. They should have been reaching out to someone else. And they have their own, you know, SOPs to be able to do it. But if they reach out to me, I'm like, well, fuck, I'm just going to do it. Like, I got to get it done kind of thing. And that's the kind of mentality you need to have, that just get it done. Like, it needs to happen. Not to say things aren't dropped and the balls don't get dropped. Oh, it happens. But, you know, have that mentality of just get it done, and regardless of whose job it is.
And do you think a lot of that comes from that Wantrepreneur idea, that like the popularization of entrepreneurship? Or do you think it's more based off of this Western culture and social media, that we have there's this laptop lifestyle, and if only you were this, you'd be able to do it?
I think it's both, because if you look at entrepreneurs on Instagram, there's people with hundreds of thousands of followers, and it's just them fucking around on a beach doing nothing, and it's them like, oh, my crypto, this and that, forex trading, which I mean, like, I believe in that. I've traded crypto. I've been in the forex world briefly. It's cool, but like, I don't see the people talking about the real side of entrepreneurship, the large amounts of depression and anxiety and loneliness that people have. And people don't talk about the scary side of it, that when you're risking hundreds of thousands of dollars, you stress about it. It's stressful. You know what I mean? So it's like, especially on the internet, where it's like a lot of things are high risk, high reward, where it's like, all right, I'm going to roll the dice on $250,000 worth of inventory. Hope it works out, kind of thing. Even though you have to have the confidence to say, no, I've done it before. I know what I'm going to do. I have a plan. I have a team. We're going to do this and this and this. But like, if you don't see the overall picture, you struggle. And a lot of people don't see that. And a lot of people get caught up in the semantics of it. And I mean, myself included. And you get a lot of anxiety because of that. Like, for example, I have smoked weed and looked at my email. I'll never do that again. And I'll look at like reports for like real estate. And I remember reading the same sentence over and over and over because I was just fucking high. And I would just being crushed with anxiety because I couldn't see the full picture. And that's what I came out of it. I sobered up an hour later and was like, oh wow, that was a terrible idea. Like, wow. Because I was so focused on the singular task and not the overall picture, it just caused a huge amount of depression and anxiety because of that in the moment anyways. That's a little side tangent. But at the same time, what I mean is like these people on Instagram, they often don't show that side of it. They just show the lavish, the girls, the money. And it's like most entrepreneurs that I know don't even live that lifestyle. I literally know one person that comes to mind who lives the lifestyle of partying in Ibiza on a yacht with a bunch of hot babes. Like literally I know one person who does that. That's and funny. Like bravo to him, great. But like he still talked to me about depression and anxiety. Like it's still a prominent thing. Most people just sit there and grind through it and have a community of entrepreneurs and don't necessarily live that lavish lifestyle. They just like entrepreneurship. They're serial entrepreneurs that like building businesses.
So what did that look like for you? Like, what was the real behind the scenes look at entrepreneurship from someone who's done it multiple times?
In what way? What do you mean?
So because like you said, like there's this idea, you go on Instagram and if someone's bio says entrepreneur, you guarantee it's going to be all photos of a beach and all this shit. As someone who has literally done it multiple times, built, scaled multiple, sold businesses, as someone who's actively done it, because I think there's a difference between those who want it and those who are like, who say like, oh, this is great and I have the knowledge and like this is what it could do and this is how we do it, as opposed to those who are actually living it. And so as someone who has lived it and created that, what is the lifestyle actually like?
It's, I mean,
like going through it and creating
it's,
that?
I mean, it's awesome. I'm not going to say it's full of depression and anxiety, but there is that. It's definitely very independent. You have to thrive on the chaos. Because you quickly
do you mean by
realize what I mean by that is like the illusion of security. The veil is drawn, like the curtains are drawn, I guess is what I mean. Like you see things for as they are in business and in jobs. So like if you have a 9-to-5 job that you have the illusion of security, you really don't have that much security. Like you could be fired at any moment. You could get sick and have to be laid off. You know what I mean? Maybe you need to move away or whatever. Like there's still so much, it's really an illusion of security. But in entrepreneurship, maybe you're making a lot of money and you can hedge yourself against risk and insecurity in that way by just like having lots of money and liquid cash kind of thing. But there's always that fear never goes away. And I've never met anyone that has told me that they feel like totally secure and that like nothing would ever happen. There's always something that could happen. The economy could go down. Most people don't want to sit on hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash anyway, so they put it into assets and have those assets work for them. You know, have money make money, which is great. That's awesome. But at the same time, something could always go wrong. And like, especially when you have money in so many different areas, a lot of times you don't even know like how much you're quote unquote worth, because you're in so many different areas with different assets appreciating at different levels. To be able to just like take it all in is just anxiety at its best.
At its best.
You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like so chaotic. So you have to learn to trust the process and trust the chaos and know that it's all going to go wrong. Absolutely. But when it does, I'll figure it out, kind of thing. And to be able to just accept that for what it is and live more presently and be like, all right, it's all going to go wrong at some point, guaranteed. Like I said, the current brand that I'm a part of, we've gone from 7 figures to almost nothing multiple times and had to scrounge and go back up. So like, I'm hoping that doesn't happen again, knock on wood kind of thing. But like at the same time, I know there's going to be problems. And I don't have the illusion of security and complacency that like, oh yeah, it'll all be good. I'm going to sit back and relax now.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit back and relax on a beach. We've done that. We've tried it. After a week, I get all antsy and it makes me even more depressed. So like, I don't really live that lifestyle.
Yeah. People seem to have this idea that, oh, if you just sit back on the beach, like that's what I'm aiming for. It's like
Mailbox
really
money.
Exactly. It's like
It's
literally
great,
like how long could you do that? So like you map it out. You sit back, you lay on a beach, you want a mojito, okay, 2, 3, cool. Great. Do that every day. 6 days a week, 7 days a week.
Oh my god.
You're gonna die so fast.
So fast.
Like holy
Honestly,
crap.
every entrepreneur I've met that had businesses at like the 7-figure level, and the people who like could sit back on a beach and say, hey, I have a team, I have a process, they're gonna do it, I'm gonna do it passively, I'm gonna sit back on the beach. I've not met a single person who said that they would want to do that or to have done that for extended amounts of time.
Yeah.
Besides a week, maybe you take a month off and you go to Thailand or something. Great, but like I've met no one who truly wants to, who has made it and truly wants to live that beach lifestyle kind of thing. The people who really make it are people who enjoy the process and they're serial entrepreneurs and they enjoy it, so they keep doing it regardless of the chaos.
Yeah, that all goes back to that whole thing. Is like you find what you enjoy, and that's true success. You find what you enjoy, and you pursue it with your whole damn heart, and that will lead to that success. And if you don't enjoy the process, then of course you're looking forward to that beach. You're looking forward to that break because you hate everything that you're doing.
That's pursuing the money and pursuing a vacation.
Exactly.
Which is great, but like there's easier ways to do that than dedicating your life to building a business you're not passionate about. That'll probably make you very upset.
Yeah.
And lots of depression.
Easily. And that's actually been a whole big thing. So I've talked with a lot of different entrepreneurs, and anxiety, depression, this loneliness, this is a very real thing.
It is.
It's a very real. Not a lot of people seem to be talking about that. And I think you're absolutely right. It's because like in order to do this, you are on your own. Like you have to have a tight community of other entrepreneurs. I think that's definitely what's helped Rome grow and what's helped you guys really flourish in the way that you have, is because you have that. You guys have developed that community. But a lot of people don't have that, and they are just going at this on their laptop, and it's like everyone else they know is out there doing the 9 to 5 thing and trying to do it, and they're
building that community is huge.
Exactly.
So huge. If for nothing else, just for your own sanity, because when you get around someone who let's say you're in the process, you haven't quote unquote made it yet. If you get around someone else who's in that same zone, in the grind, in the weeds, they get you. They get you and they understand it, and you can relate to them. You're instantly best friends with them. And especially when you get around people who if you have made it and you have had success, and then you get around other people who have made it, have had success, those people get it, and you can talk to them about real life issues in your business and real life numbers. You don't have to hide anything. You don't have to tiptoe around eggshells. You don't have to put on any amount of facade to spare someone's amount of envy that they might have, kind of thing, for like some social norm type thing. You can truly be open, and it's a beautiful thing, and it relieves a huge amount of stress. And that's exactly why we go to different community events, masterminds, just to be around. Even if you're not like, I've gone to mastermind events where it's like, all right, I have this issue, I need to round table this with a bunch of people and like figure out what the issue is here and fix it. Which is great. That's a great way to solve the problems. And I've done that. But I've also gone to those events saying, okay, I just need to be around my friends right now. Like, I need to just like be around people that I can be open with and that I can talk to about my real life problems and just be in that community.
Yeah, so it has that. It's both the networking and the community aspect of it.
And the beautiful thing of it is that a lot of people think, and myself included, like when I first started going to like mastermind events, I thought, oh, these people are going to be like so much above me, and like they're going to be like either maybe snobby or something, not really want to talk to me or something. Like, people don't care. People don't give a fuck. Like, if you're an entrepreneur and you've made it, like you've shown you have your patch or your little like war stripe or whatever, like you've done it, and they're regular people. You know what I mean? They just want to have a normal conversation. They don't want to be treated differently. You don't want to be treated differently. You want to have a normal conversation. It's kind of odd, just because like you kind of go into like events thinking, all right, you got to dress up, you got to like play the part kind of thing, but you don't, and you really just want to connect to people, and that's what they want too.
And there's this big, maybe stigma isn't the right word, but there's this big misperception that if you have made it, and if you have like financially, if you have this success, that you'll be this snob and you'll be this type of person.
And I totally get that, because like I've totally felt that way. Like as in, I felt like people would do that. And I've always actively tried to never be that person. I'd never want to be that person. Like, I would rather be super humble and like be under the radar. I don't want that kind of attention. And I would never want to be that person, but I've been that person in the sense of thinking other people were that person, if that makes sense. And they've never been. I've never met a single, well, I guess I shouldn't say that. There's plenty of snobby people out there, but the majority of people are perfectly open to, if you treat them like a human and like just genuinely have a conversation with them and build rapport with them. That's something I made a big mistake with when I first started going to these like mastermind events and building like a community of friends and of entrepreneurs, was I immediately wanted value. I wasn't giving anything. I didn't know these people. I didn't know, and I kind of pissed some people off, I remember. And we're good friends now, but one of these guys, I literally pissed him off immediately, because I was like, boom, boom, boom. What is this strategy? Do you do this? What do you think about this? Have you had success in this? Like, and he was like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's have a conversation. Like, build some rapport, for God's sake. And it was just hugely insightful. And I'm really glad he said that. Shout out, AJ. Very glad you did that. But yeah, you have to genuinely care about people and like build rapport with them and have a relationship with them. And essentially, like, the hook comes back to like the lead with value, and like try to add as much value as you can, listen intently, and see what you can learn from them. If you're talking about, building a community.
Yeah. So that is there anything else you would say towards building a community? Any other steps?
There's so many ways to do it. So like, I would recommend not immediately jumping into a mastermind. I think a lot of people, like I've seen a lot of people go from, I have an idea, to I'm joining this mastermind because I can afford to, or I'm going to this event in this like conference because maybe you can afford to. But if you have an idea and you want to see it through, test it. If it's a product and you have this, like, everyone has the crazy product ideas. That's the first thing anyone says when you say you own a physical products brand. Oh, I have this great idea. It's a toothbrush that will clean itself when you do, and you're like, okay, maybe, cool. I don't know if that's going to be successful or not. Maybe sometimes you can tell, but like, if you have an idea, just test it. It's most likely already out there. You can most likely get it for China very cheap. Buy it, drop ship it, start some ads. If nothing else, you'll spend a few $100 and learn how to navigate Facebook and learn how to navigate manufacturers and the Chinese culture.
It seems to be a big thing. People seem to just jump in. They have this like square one that I have this idea, and then they jump in at square like 80.
Yeah,
they're like,
try to get to step 10 immediately, and you was skipping step 2.
Exactly, and going through that progression, which is exactly what we talked about at the beginning of this, and how important it is to go through that. So this is something that would be interesting when it comes to social media. And when it comes to social media, like building a social media following, how important do you think that is? And I have a feeling I have to clarify. Yeah. So when it comes to building a social media following, essentially what I'm asking is what is that the same? Like, to say you have a social media following, is that the same to say you have a business? You have a large social media following.
Well, I guess it's a defined following. Like, I don't know if this is exactly what you mean, but there's lots of people out there with 10, 20, 50,000 followers, but they're getting, the engagement is not organic, or the engagement is because of bots or XYZ kind of thing. I don't know if that's exactly what you mean. Or are you talking about like how to build a following organically? Or?
No, so that idea that if I have 50,000 followers, regardless of the quality and regardless of the value, if I have this certain number of followers, that all of a sudden I'll have a business and people will be giving me all their products, and I'll be all of a sudden able to make all this money.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said about having an audience, and that's huge. I mean, I think I have like maybe 2,000 followers on Instagram. Probably some of them bots, because I've messed around with that world for sure. If you have a genuinely engaged audience of any amount, if you have an engaged audience, nurture them and treat them right, and like, don't strive for 10,000 followers but ignore your 1,000 kind of thing. I've heard Gary Vee talk about that. I thought that was really valuable. If you're getting comments on your photos and you're ignoring them because you're waiting to get engagement on a following of 10,000 but you only have 1,000, like, no, fuck it. Pay attention to those people, nurture those people, give them what they want, add value to that audience. In the same way of lead with value, I typically don't post on Instagram unless I have something valuable to post, unless it's like a random like thing. Sometimes I post random things, but like for the majority, I don't like to post unless it's like I think it's super valuable. I don't think people see that often. I think people kind of just chase the hype. They want the clout, as Travis would say. They want the clout of having, a massive audience, but they don't exactly understand how to get there, and the fact that you just need to find an engaged niche and provide value to them, and they'll come back. Like, karma is a real thing on the internet, if that makes sense. Like, if you just provide enough value, like you'll get value in return. If you have a following that's like substantial, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50,000, a super engaged audience, you absolutely can build a business around that. And that's great. If those people, if you're out there, hit me up, definitely. We'll figure something out. But like, I guess that's what I mean. You can absolutely build a business around a following. It's a great way to build a business. It's an amazing way to build a business.
But it comes from that point of value.
Yeah. If you have a following of 20,000 people and maybe they're engaged, but they're following you for the wrong reasons and you're adding value in the wrong ways. For example, I'll give you the example. We once hired, this was with Tribe Fitness, we once hired someone who had over 1 million followers. We paid her X amount of money to post a few photos of her wearing our fitness products and do essentially advertising for our fitness products. She had a huge amount of truly engaged followers, but they were following her for the wrong reasons. She was adding value in the wrong ways. She was one of those butt models. She was a booty model. She was a booty model for sure. So and I think we got like 30,000 likes on a photo, hundreds of comments, and I think we got like 5 sales from it.
Damn.
Kind of thing. And I know people who live in the influencer world that will do that same kind of post to a relevant audience of half the size and make hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's really about knowing your audience and knowing why are they engaging with me? You know what I mean? What value am I giving to them that they're eating up? You know what I mean? Are they engaging with me for the right reasons? So, and I see a lot of people get stuck in that they just think, if I have engagement, then I have a business. And it's not necessarily true. Maybe you have engagement. You could pay bots to get 5,000 likes on a photo. You might be able to trick some advertisers to make some money, but you're not truly going to be able to build a brand or build a business around that unless you know exactly why they're engaging with you, and you can feed them products and ideas and services, whatever it is that adds value to them and that they will buy.
And then how do you develop that?
Developing that audience?
Yeah.
Just adding value. So like, I shouldn't say I'm not an authority in that space. Like I don't have, like I said, I have like a few thousand followers on Instagram, and it's like it's nothing special. I don't have massive audiences that I sell to. I live in a different world. I'm just now, as you know, getting into like the influencer marketing side of things. So I'm learning more about it. But what I have seen and what I have been able to test and react to on Instagram anyways is just adding value. So knowing who you're following is and exactly why they're following you, like what are they interested in? Why do they like your photos? And you can tell a lot of times by just looking at the people and asking questions. Literally, you can post stories. Stories are a great way to figure out what your engagement is and why they're either engaging with you.
Yeah.
Ask them questions. Say, why are you following me? Do you like this content or do you like this content?
So it's literally about that engagement, about engaging with the followers, like you said before, engaging with the followers that you have in order to build that up.
Yeah,
instead of ignoring them and striving after something else.
Just like spamming them with content, because content's great, but like the content has to be valuable.
And then you kind of you judge their reaction on that content, and that's how you can develop and say, okay, this is the content that they like. You can engage with them by asking and by directly talking with them and figuring that out. Interesting. It's pretty sweet. It's that whole idea of leading with value.
The more and more we, over the last like 2 years, I should say, 2 years-ish, it's become much more of a prominent thing. It's pretty much essentially like the death of private labeling per se. We realized that, okay, we need to start building a brand, developing a mission, developing a why, and like figuring out where our value is, why people like us, and like what value is missing in markets, so we can like give that value to be able to get better conversion over other people kind of thing, and build products and businesses that way. Ever since then, and where that became much more of a prominent thing talked about in our community and talked about amongst ourselves in our own businesses, we've been implementing it in every aspect, whether it's our marketing or even our promotional giveaways in my own Instagram, like through everything. That idea of just leading with value, it's never steered us wrong, and it's always been valuable. We've always gotten the karma value back per se.
And that's an interesting thing to say too, is implementing it in every area, not just like a single thing. So implementing, because people would assume that it's a very different world to say, oh, how do you get someone to buy a product, and how do you get someone to join your team and to join your brand, your company? They would seem like two different worlds, but in reality, it's actually very similar.
It's definitely very valuable.
Exactly.
I mean,
what value do you add?
It's a super like general statement, because it's like easy to say that, but it's obviously more complex than that.
There's
like,
a lot more
for example,
nuances.
like let's say you're selling glasses, like you're wearing a pair of glasses, you're selling glasses, and you have like the super valuable glasses. They're super high quality. They are reflective, UV coating, and they have like a slight magnification or whatever you want. You know what I mean? Prescription at a cheap price, like whatever it is. And it's you're selling them at a great price. If you that's hugely valuable. But then if you target someone who doesn't wear glasses and doesn't give a shit about glasses, you're targeting the wrong audience. You're adding value to the wrong people. And it goes back to that like influencer we hired, the booty model. She was targeting. If we would have offered, I don't know what old men are interested in on Instagram. You know what I mean? Like if we would have said, here's like a survival kit for the outdoors. I don't know. Maybe that would have been the value they were looking for. But you have to know your audience and provide value to your audience. That's why it's like so important to specifically know who you're targeting and who your customer is. If it's a business, who your audience is, if you're an influencer building an audience, and then provide value specifically for that person, not just provide value. Because you can provide value all day long. It's like the idea of you can be the best musician in the world, but if nobody hears your music, does it even matter?
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? You can add value in the best way possible, but if you're not adding value to the right people, you have to be seen or heard or bought by the right people for it to really move the needle.
And do you think that working in like different teams, certain teams bring out better, more value in each other? I'm talking like relationally. How do I want to structure that? Do you think that having teams can bring out certain values, like certain team dynamics can bring out certain values, and others can like diminish the values?
Yeah, absolutely. So like corporate culture kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. So for example, we had an employee with Rome that was an amazing employee. He did amazing work. He was great at his job, but he was not the right culture fit for the brand. The energy was not there, the motivation was not there. It brought down the vibe of the whole room and all the meetings. So like him being valuable in his own work was not necessarily adding value to everyone else. Everyone else was not thriving because of it. But once he left, once he was gone, we were able to cultivate a much better environment where people were adding value to everyone and everyone's thriving because of it. You know, instead of like people being shut down and because of awkward pauses and, you know, people not being motivated and driven. It was people building up each other's hype and, you know, getting excited together and adding value to each other.
It's funny, I know Jeff Hoffman I remember him talking about this at one of the conferences that I've heard him go to, and he was talking about the same thing. He had this guy, he's a top sales rep in his team, and he would just treat like everyone else who quote unquote below him, who weren't as successful as him, treat him like crap. It was like, oh, you're the janitor, I don't need to know your name, I don't need to know who you are, doesn't matter. I am a sales rep, doesn't matter who you are. And Jeff Hoffman saw this and was like, no, it's like that's just not okay. And the guy was like, what? And then Jeff Hoffman ended up firing the guy, and he was like their top sales rep. And you don't fire your top sales rep. That goes against everything in the manuals, everything in the book.
Everything in the manuals.
Everything in the manuals. It's like goes against everything like in your gut. Like you're not gonna fire the guy who's bringing in the most money. But when he did, their numbers rose dramatically the next month. And so we brought up a team, he looked at the team, he got a meeting, he's like, guys, what the hell happened? He's like, I literally fired the guy who was bringing in more money than anyone else. And you guys, all of a sudden now, without him, we're making much more money than we were with him. And they looked at him and said, yeah, you fired the guy who was bringing everyone down, killing all of our motivation, making us not, like the dark cloud in the room, making us not want to actually strive and do better. When you fired him, you brought everyone else brought up.
That's good.
Yeah, same idea, right?
Yeah.
Dude, fantastic. Is there anything else you would like to add? Anything else you'd like to cover?
I think that's it. I don't have anything specific in mind.
Perfect. Where can people find you? For all you people out here, if you're looking for this guy, get in contact with him.
Yeah. Okay. My shameless plug. Jeremiah L. Klingman on Instagram. JeremiahLKlingman. I'm pretty sure that's it. That's my Instagram. You can hit me up there. You can email me. You can contact me. Whatever you want. Maybe you can just follow me. Send me $5,000.
Send me $5,000. We'll find out. Okay, dude. Thank you so much for jumping on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, it was awesome.